All right, good morning, everyone. You guys ready to get started? Morning. Yeah, all right. I'm Bernardo Caldas. I'm going to be representing Azure Stack HCI today, and soon I'll be joined on stage by my colleagues Dean and Natalia, and we're going to spend the session today talking about the Azure Edge portfolio. So that's why we have the three product representatives here. So we've been working on Edge and hybrid for several years now. And through the course of our journey, we've engaged with a lot of you, a lot of customers, to understand what are the requirements for bringing workloads to the edge. And the list is sort of similar to what you see here on the slide, where we have customers, lots of customers will have data sovereignty issues or data residency issues. They have network bandwidth constraints depending on where the workloads are running or their specific situation, geography, or remote locations, oil rigs, and so forth. There are billions of IoT edge devices in your environment or in the world, and then many in your environment that cannot connect directly to the public cloud. So that's where edge solutions come into play. Depending on the workload, there are many application patterns, sometimes interdependencies between on-premises systems and cloud-native systems that you need to orchestrate. So with all those needs combined, sort of led to our Azure hybrid portfolio. And here at Ignite, we're announcing several changes to our Azure hybrid portfolio to bring innovation anywhere with Azure. The first set of announcements we've made was around the Azure Stack family. That's the subject of this talk, so we're going to spend a lot of time discussing that today. We've also announced Azure Arc, which gives you the ability to use Azure management and run Azure services anywhere on any cloud. And we also announced enhancements to Azure IoT, which was already there, that helps you connect your IoT devices to the cloud. So let's talk about the Azure Stack portfolio. So these are the three products in the portfolio. I'll start with Azure Stack Edge. This was formerly known as Data Box Edge. It's our cloud-managed appliance. It's great for machine learning at the edge, to doing edge computing and connecting to IoT solutions, and doing network data transfer. The second product in the portfolio is Azure Stack HCI. That's our hyper-converged solution. It's great for running scalable virtualization and storage. It's great for running remote and branch office and high-performance workloads. And the final product here is Azure Stack Hub. This is the new name for the original Azure Stack product. So if you're familiar with Azure Stack, that's Azure Stack Hub, now called. That's our cloud-native integrated system. And it's great for connected and disconnected scenarios, running with air gap to the public cloud. It's great for data sovereignty scenarios where you need to run the entire cloud on-premise and sometimes offline. And for application modernization, when you want to standardize on techniques with DevOps between the public cloud and on-premises, Azure Stack Hub is a great solution for that. So I'm going to start with Azure Stack HCI and give you a little bit more information about what it is and how to take advantage of it. So Azure Stack HCI is a product that's built on Windows Server 2019, combined with partner-validated solutions, HCI solutions, to deliver an HCI hybrid operations where you can connect your on-prem resources to the cloud, and you can do that through Azure Arc that we announced here at Ignite, or you can connect also to many other hybrid services for security, monitoring, and so forth. It is based on software-defined infrastructure, so if you're familiar with Windows Server, you're familiar with Hyper-V, and Storage Spaces Directs and Windows SDN. So those are all the pieces that comprise our HCI solution here. And we have a catalog of validated solutions from 20+ partners around the world. And you can go and get one of those validated solutions with pre-installed software where you can build yourself as well. So Azure Stack HCI is great when you want to connect your on-prem resources to the cloud for hybrid scenarios, when you're trying to consolidate your infrastructure or modernizing your data centers. Here at Ignite, we've announced 5 use cases for Azure Stack HCI. These are the popular use cases where customers are using, they're telling us they use Azure Stack HCI products for. So the first one is branch office and edge, where they have a remote location, retail location, for example, and they want to run some LOB apps locally as well as do some hybrid operations. VDI has been a very popular scenario for HCI. High-performance SQL Server, so we're going to talk about that later. Trusted enterprise virtualization and scale-out storage. So what we've done here was we partnered with our OEM partners to create essentially solution briefs and hardware that's tailored for the solutions. So when you go into the Azure Stack HCI catalog, you'll be able to filter by the scenarios and find hardware that's kind of tailored to what you're trying to do, just making it easier for you to adopt the solutions. We've already started getting feedback on this 5 to add some additional solutions, so you should expect that we'll be adding more solutions as we move along. As I mentioned earlier, we have solutions from 20 partners around the world, so all the major server vendors are listed here. Cisco was just added to our catalog, and we have over 150 solutions available for you. So you can find solution at the right price, the right form factor from your preferred vendor, and it's all available in the catalog, and that catalog is growing very rapidly since we announced the product earlier this year. A couple of months ago in September, Storage Review did a comparison of HCI solutions in the market, and we won the Editor's Choice Award. And here's a quote from Storage Review. Azure Stack HCI solution proved to be simple to deploy, easy to manage, and exceptionally performant. So these are words that we hear from our customers fairly consistently, because if they're familiar with Windows Server, if they're familiar to using Windows Server, they're already familiar with Azure Stack HCI, and makes it very approachable for them to go and deploy our HCI solution. In this particular award, so a Storage Review found us to be the fastest 4-node HCI cluster they've ever seen, and they compared us with other products, and compared to vSAN from VMware, we were 6 times faster on SQL workloads. From a customer perspective, I want to share the story of the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. So they're a museum in Canada where they focus on human rights. They're the first of their kind. And they have a digital catalog of 0.5 petabyte of data that they serve in their galleries across over 500 screens. So most of their content is on premises, but as they set up the museum in 2014, they wanted to deliver the same content also online through the cloud. So a very classic kind of hybrid scenario. They went and evaluated several different solutions, and they chose Azure Stack HCI. And the reason for that is because they wanted to use the same tool set, administration, and training for their on-prem infrastructure and their cloud. And they were able to achieve that and be great on-prem and great in the cloud using Azure Stack HCI solutions. And they picked a solution from our partner DataON. Azure Arc is a new offering that we announced here at Ignite that enables you to connect and run Azure data services anywhere, extend Azure management to on-prem resources, and adopt cloud practices on-prem, as well as implement Azure security anywhere. So it's just an ability to expand the Azure control plane to on-premise resources. And what I wanted to do today was to show how you can do that with Azure Stack HCI. Now, like I said, Azure Stack HCI just run Windows Server 2019 under the hood. So I'm going to actually start this demo on the Windows Admin Center. So who is familiar with Windows Admin Center? All right, lots of you. So if you're familiar with Admin Center, or even if you're not, so we actually launched yesterday the version 1910. And that's the version that includes the capabilities I'm going to show next. So here we are in the Admin Center UI for Server Manager. And I'm just going to go here on Settings. And here on Settings, we have added a new Azure Arc for Servers option. And with this option, you can basically go with a single click, connect this on-premises VM running on Azure Stack HCI to Azure Arc. So I'm going to go ahead and click Get Started. And then it opens sort of this UI. I'm going to select an existing resource group. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick the region, so US West. And I can go set proxies if I need to. And then I click Set Up. When I click Setup, what's happening here in the background is we're going and deploying the Azure Arc agent on this VM so that this VM is now going to be connected to Azure Management. So the setup is now complete. And then I'm going to turn here to this other machine. To show you, hopefully it's not locked. It is locked. So I might invite Natalia on stage to unlock the machine.
One big happy family.
That's right. So we all share our computers. All right. So here I am now in the Azure portal. So I connected that on-prem resource to Azure. And here in the Azure portal, we've got sort of this new Edge management area of the Azure portal where you can see all your Edge resources. So here in this account, you can see Azure Stack Hub, Azure Stack Edge. I've got 9 of them connected. But you can also see virtual machines that have been connected from on-premise resources to Azure or from any cloud that they're running aside from Azure. They're connected to Azure through Azure Cloud. So we've got 10 of those. We've got Kubernetes clusters here connected as well. We've got IoT hubs and then SQL databases also connected here in this experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here on the machines for VMs. So you see a number of VMs here listed. One of those VMs is this Platinum LOB app that I just connected to Azure using Windows Admin Center. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. And this is now just an Azure resource. And you can manage it like an Azure resource. So you see here, you can see the version that's running connected to Western US. You can look at the activity log. You can do role-based access control. You can apply tags. So one of the popular things that we heard from customers they want to do is be able to have a consistent role-based access management for resources on premises as well as in Azure. So with Azure Arc, we're now enabling that so you can use this experience to go and connect and manage those resources there on-prem. You can go and apply tags, and any of the facilities of Azure management can now be applied in an easy way with a single click onboarding to this experience. So I'm going to go back here to the summary. So this is where we started. So what did we announce here at Ignite? So first of all, we've announced an expansion of our product portfolio, our catalog. Cisco was just added to the catalog, so we have all those options that I talked about. We've also announced the GA of Windows Admin Center version 19.10, and with that came a number of features, including the one I just demoed, the Azure Arc for Servers onboarding. We also included there a wizard-like workflow for you to deploy Azure Stack HCI on a 2-node or n-node cluster. We support now end-to-end live migration from Hyper-V servers and clusters. And there is opportunities to connect with a number of Azure services as well. Connect your servers to Azure services as well. We've also started to preview features for the next release of Windows Server. So one of those is GeoStretch for HCI clusters for disaster recovery, BitLocker encryption for HCI volume. And all those features are accruing to Azure Stack HCI. So there's a number of sessions going on today. If you want to learn more about these features of Windows Server vNext, they're going to come to Azure Stack HCI. Please do so. So now I'm going to invite on stage my colleague, Dean Paron, to talk about Azure Stack Edge.
Thanks, Bernardo. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dean Paron. I'm the General Manager of Azure Stack Edge. Who's heard of Data Box Edge? Anybody? Hey, that's pretty good. So Azure Stack Edge is the new name for Data Box Edge. We have moved Data Box Edge from the Data Box family, which is going to be about data transport and storage, into the Azure Stack family, where it's going to be more focused on compute and machine learning and things like that. Who heard about the rename? I'm going to do a test on that. That's pretty good. OK, so what is Azure Stack Edge? Very simply, Azure Stack Edge. So by the way, first of all, my apologies if I confuse the name while I'm talking here. I guarantee it's going to happen probably at least once. Azure Stack Edge is an edge computing appliance directly from Microsoft that works with Azure. I actually brought one of them with me here today. Here it is. This is one that we have on the show floor. This is a small, ruggedized version of Azure Stack Edge. We actually have a display in the Intelligent Edge area of the expo, where you can come see this one and a few of the other form factors. Let me talk about some of the capabilities. Primarily, the way to think about Azure Stack Edge is as an Azure Edge appliance that is fully integrated with Azure. Like, that's the frame, that's the baseline. So it's a first-party appliance from Microsoft. We offer it directly as an Azure service. You order it from the portal by clicking on a button in the portal to order it, and it shows up in your bill as a monthly subscription fee, metered as any other Azure service. Right? So that's kind of the baseline for how it works. And the core capabilities that it has are really about bringing cloud-native capabilities out to the edge. Okay, and what type of cloud capabilities? The basics. We bring storage out to the edge with a storage gateway, so you can read and write files and blobs at the edge. You have a cache, it moves them back and forth to the cloud. We bring compute to the edge, so you can create VMs and containers and workloads that are based in VMs and containers on the edge. And we bring acceleration. So we have two different commercial SKUs of Azure Stack Edge. One of them has a GPU, one of them has an FPGA, so you can accelerate some of your machine learning workloads at the edge as well. But that's the frame, right? It's a first-party edge appliance from Azure that we offer as a service that brings storage, compute, and acceleration to the edge, and we're adding more roles over time. So let's talk about what you can do with Azure Stack Edge. And we have primarily sort of three different use cases for Azure Stack Edge, and they're sort of in increasing complexity. The first of which is just network data transfer, right? There are a lot of edge scenarios that are just generating tremendous amounts of information. You know, I work with a lot of autonomous vehicle companies, and a single autonomous vehicle can create 100 terabytes of data in a single day if they're test driving it around everything. That's just an enormous amount of information to move up to the cloud and process and the whole deal. And so with something like Azure Stack Edge, you can use Azure Stack Edge as a local storage cache. You can read and write from it. It will optimize your traffic, moving it back and forth to the cloud. If you have a slow network connection, it'll basically act as a cache. So you read and write into the cache, and it'll drain out to the cloud and stay in sync over time. And you don't need to just do storage movement back and forth from the cloud. You can actually do pre-processing, right? So let's say you're shooting a bunch of photos, and those photos are in RAW format, and you want to do something like convert them to JPEGs before you move them up to the cloud, right? You have the intelligence capabilities there with compute to do something like that. So that's the first bucket. The second bucket's around edge compute. So in addition to storage, you can actually just run compute workloads on Azure Stack Edge. Those compute workloads can be connected to the storage. You can set up a processing pipeline to move your storage and things like that. Or they can just be arbitrary applications. You can have a containerized application or a VM-based application that you've created in the cloud, and you can push it out to Azure Stack Edge. And then the third use case is machine learning at the edge. I mean, this is a pattern that we're really seeing repeating in a lot of different industries. But the idea is that, frankly, you're replacing human eyeballs at the edge with machine learning inferencing. So you have cameras, whether they're on a factory floor and looking at things on an assembly line, or whether they are security cameras and you're looking for somebody going into an area of a building that they're not supposed to go into. You're doing things like moving live video feeds directly onto Azure Stack Edge, doing the processing there on Azure Stack Edge, not round-tripping into the cloud, and then making local decisions and actions right there with cloud APIs. So that's the third use case. Let me talk to you about how they all come together with one of our customers, Kroger. So Kroger is using Azure Stack Edge in their stores to build a modern shopping experience for customers. And they're doing kind of a few different things. Kind of everything from that previous slide all comes together at Kroger. One, you know, Kroger has cameras all over their stores, as you can imagine, like existing cameras. And they can do things like follow people around and provide a personalized shopping experience based on things like sentiment analysis or age or gender. And they can give customized ads, like on your shopping cart, based on processing they're doing at the edge right there based on a camera feed. They're also doing something called void detection. Right? My first job was at a grocery store as a stock boy when I was 16 years old. They're building something that would have made my job easier, which is they've got cameras that are looking at the aisles and looking at the shelves in the aisles. And when somebody takes the last box of cornflakes off the shelf, it notices that there's a void in the shelf where the box of cornflakes should be, and it sends an alert to the stocker to go get the next box of cornflakes from the stockroom. Right? So what Kroger's doing with Azure Stack Edge is they're building these modern shopping experiences. And what I would suggest, if folks are on the floor, you should actually go check out, Intel has an experience booth where you can actually check out some modern retail experiences that are built on Azure Stack Edge. Okay, let's Rather than talk about it, I'd rather show a demo. And so the demo that I'm going to show is one that's actually based. What number am I going to here? 8. OK, cool. OK, good. OK, so this is a demo that is based on this particular form factor of Azure Stack Edge. This is the backpack form factor. We have this demo working on one of these devices that's backstage, but it's all one that works on a device just of this class. And the setup here is in 2014, there was a major Ebola outbreak in Liberia. And the United States deployed a team from USAID to actually go develop a response to that outbreak. And one of my friends was part of that team. And this is a picture of the whiteboard from the team on the ground when they got on the ground in Liberia to fight the Ebola outbreak. And what they were trying to do was find, categorize, and sort and make sense of information. Right? There was not a lot of infrastructure on the ground. Documents were on PCs, and they were on USB sticks, and they were just kind of scattered everywhere. And they were trying to find and make sense of some really basic stuff, like what's the state of the Wi-Fi networks, and what are the casualty counts, and where are the hospitals, and things like that. And this was this like horribly complex manual process. And so what we did is we built an app on Azure Stack Edge that helps with that. It does effectively the same sorts of things that the team in Liberia was trying to do. OK, so let me bring this up. Here's the app here. And what this app does is it does basic searching and categorizing of information from documents. Like really simple, right? Like this particular device speaks SMB and NFS. So you can just copy documents right to it. And we set up a processing pipeline using containerized compute to basically take the incoming stream of documents and apply modern cloud techniques to them, like Azure Cognitive Services. And we built that entire model, and we pushed it down to this Azure Stack Edge. And now it runs like out in the field without this box being connected to the cloud at all. That makes sense. And so now what I can do is all these documents have been categorized, and I can search for things, and I can see what comes back. So we've uploaded a bunch of documents from the Liberia Ebola outbreak, and I've just categorized them all here. So for example, I can type in the word hospital, and you can see what comes back when I type in the word hospital. And as you would expect, you get a whole bunch of documents that come back that have the word hospital in them. And in particular, I want to show you a couple at the top here. This first one is a map of all the healthcare facilities in Liberia. And if I turn on the OCR tab here, you can see that the word hospital is in this map, which is good, because that's what I searched for. What's interesting here is that this is not a structured document like a PDF. This is a JPEG file. Right? And so one of the skills that computer vision has through Azure Cognitive Services is the ability to find and extract text from image files. Let me show you one of the other results here that comes back. This is a PDF file, so this is a structured document. But I think folks can recognize this is not in English. They speak French in many parts of that part of the world. But if I go over here to the translation tab, you can see that the word hospital appears in this document in English. So even though the word's not there in French, the word is there in English. And this particular, one of the other skills that we have with Azure Cognitive Services is text translation. Right? So there's another example of taking a cloud technique and applying it down to something locally to expose it into the search. OK, so the last thing I'm going to search for is the word Lofa. Lofa is the northernmost county in Liberia. It's where the outbreak started for Ebola. And so if I search for the word Lofa, you have a whole bunch of things come back, as you would expect. But one of the things that comes back is that whiteboard that we mentioned earlier. And the reason that that whiteboard comes back, if I zoom in over here on the corners, you can see that somebody wrote Lofa in handwriting on that board in the upper left-hand corner, and that's another one of the skills. Another one of the skills is handwriting recognition. Right? So if you think about what we saw here, this wasn't just basic searching and indexing. Right? This was applying modern cloud techniques from Azure Machine Learning and Cognitive Services, building an app that packaged all that up, pushing it out to an edge appliance based on Azure Stack Edge, and then running all those scenarios out in the field without being connected in the cloud. I'm really excited. We have a bunch of new capabilities that we're announcing for the product line. It was actually 1 year ago at this show last year that we announced Data Box Edge for the first time. So I'm really excited to come back a year later. The product GA'd about 6 months ago, and now we have a whole bunch of new capabilities that we are adding into the product. Let's start with kind of the software capabilities. So there's new roles coming to Data Box Edge. I mentioned that Data Box Edge is just an Azure connected edge appliance, and so we're always adding new roles and capabilities over time. We're announcing at this show support for virtual machines on Data Box Edge. We're announcing support for Kubernetes managed containers. We're adding support for private MEC compute, multi-access edge compute, which is a role that lets you turn Data Box Edge effectively into a private LTE server inside your corporation. We're also adding other capabilities, just kind of basics in terms of like high availability and clustering, so you can set up a multi-node Azure Stack Edge cluster. And then on the hardware side, we actually have some new hardware options for Azure Stack Edge as well. We have, as you can see along the bottom, it's actually easier to kind of look at the pictures on the bottom. We're actually expanding the family for Azure Stack Edge, and we're going to have now both a rugged series and a commercial series. And so the product that's in market today is the first of the commercial series, and that's one with an FPGA. We're introducing a second variant on the commercial side, which instead of the FPGA, will have a GPU, an NVIDIA-based GPU. So we'll have two commercial-based offerings. And then on the rugged side, we actually have a couple rugged-based offerings. There's this appliance, which is proverbially known as the backpack appliance, because it fits into a backpack. And then we have a larger ruggedized appliance as well. That's a 2U, 1U appliance with a UPS that's in a bigger ruggedized case. And with those rugged appliances, you can actually take Azure Stack Edge out far into the field and really kind of expand the boundaries of where you can take computing like this. Okay, so that's Azure Stack Edge. I'm now going to turn things over to my colleague Natalia, who's going to talk to you about Azure Stack Hub. Thanks, Natalia.
Thank you, Dean. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good? This is a short session and a lot of content, but I'm here to talk to you about Azure Stack Hub. So many of you may have been familiar with Azure Stack. So the original Azure Stack, we've rebranded to Azure Stack Hub as we've expanded the portfolio of products to include Azure Stack Edge and Azure Stack HCI. So I'm really excited about all the different edge capabilities we can drive with that family. So Azure Stack Hub, how many of you are familiar with Hub? Almost everyone in the room. Good. So I won't spend a lot of time on this. It is a completely autonomous cloud. It's the only hybrid consistent cloud that you can run either fully connected or disconnected environments. So we literally take the Azure Resource Manager, bring it on premises with the Azure Stack Hub system. It provides consistent application development. So because we have ARM on premises, it's the same API you can use in Azure as well as Azure Stack. And it provides Azure services. So Azure services on premises include full Azure services like Azure Functions, Web Apps capabilities, IaaS with VM extensions and others, and also an Azure Marketplace that you can control. You can syndicate content from Azure Public Cloud down to a marketplace that you control of what images and functionality. So that brings an entire ecosystem down to Azure Stack Hub. It is built on purpose-built integrated systems. So one aspect of that is, Bernardo talked a lot about Azure Stack HCI. So Azure Stack HCI is some of the underpinnings of Azure Stack Hub. And then we work with our hardware partners to provide solutions for Azure Stack Hub to create integrated systems. Some of the use cases are a couple things. One, for environments where you need cloud capabilities, but you can't connect to the public cloud. That could be because of network latency. It could be data sovereignty or regulation. But there's many places in the United States, many places across the globe, where you don't have network connectivity or you have data sovereignty or data regulation. Finally, it is where you want to do application modernization. You want modern applications, modern services, cloud functionality, Azure functionality in those environments. So last year, we announced tactical edge solutions. So just like the rugged series that we have available with Azure Stack Edge, we have Azure Stack Hub tactical edge solutions. So these are ruggedized Azure Stack systems that you can run in harsh or austere environments. So think of areas where there's limited or restricted connectivity. So mining, submarines, aircrafts, those types of environments where it really is harsh, austere environments. You need field operations. So field operations could be embassies or disaster relief or even humanitarian effort. But you still want full cloud capabilities. One of the things that we have in preview is IoT Hub. So IoT Hub gives you the capability to connect devices and sensors and send them to an Azure Stack Hub system. and then also for management of fleet assets. So the benefits of having a tactical edge solution combined with some of our edge offerings like Azure Stack Edge or Azure Stack HCI give you those full cloud capabilities on premises. So we've been in market now for several years. So general availability was over 2 years ago. We announced before then. And so Azure Stack Hub's been in the market with our partner solutions. We are now available in over 100, we're in 100 countries. So almost any place you could imagine across the globe. We actually have customers in 60 countries. We continue to innovate from a hardware perspective. So hardware including those ruggedized systems, but then also adding capabilities like we're providing previews of GPU capabilities. So we have innovations hardware and then software from a services perspective, as well as some of our partner solutions from ISVs. We continue to innovate with Azure Stack Hub. As an example of a customer is Hong Kong Exchange. So Hong Kong Exchange, you may have seen, Satya mentioned in his keynote, is they're using Azure Stack Hub to really start innovating, having cloud practices in their environment. So I'm going to play a short video so you can see more about their use cases with Azure Stack Hub.
HAEX is the world's leading IPO market, and as Hong Kong's only security and derivative exchange, is uniquely placed to offer regional and international investors access to Asia's most vibrant markets. We aspire to be leaders in technology innovation. HAEX corporate services run on a legacy infrastructure. We wanted to leverage our team's skill sets across a consistent platform, hence a total technology refresh is now needed to remove these constraints. It was clear to HAEX that cloud was the right direction to go. We had to determine the selection between public cloud, hybrid cloud, and private cloud. HAEX was a systemically important operator of markets, regulated by the Securities and Futures Commission. Security and data sovereignty are two of our most important decision-making considerations. Microsoft is one of the forerunners in public cloud technology. Microsoft became the leader in cloud services across public cloud and hybrid cloud offerings. We have completed the deployment of Azure Stack. We are now in phase 2, which is to migrate a large number of existing business applications from the legacy infrastructure onto Azure Stack. This will then allow us to focus on building innovative solutions for our customers. Chatbot, AI-related applications, and robotics will help our businesses to better serve the participants of our exchanges and clearing houses. Azure Stack has already proven to be a high-performance platform with greater speed and flexibility in provisioning infrastructure, platform, and flexibility in managing subscriptions. We expect to experience faster time to market, greater cost efficiency, while maintaining the high standards of reliability that this market expects from us. We believe we will be able to stay ahead of the curve in terms of implementing the best practices in transformation for our global markets.
So I love that video of Hong Kong Exchange because it really shows one of the great use cases of Azure Stack Hub. It really is about having hybrid cloud and how they're innovating. So they're actually using modern development practices, everything from data and AI, looking at robotics. So they're actually innovating in their environment, modernizing applications and services, and having those Azure capabilities on premises with Azure Stack Hub. So I think the best way to show this is showing this through a demo. But I'm going to show you a demo that really shows you the entire spectrum of the Azure Stack portfolio, connecting both the Azure Stack Edges as well as Azure Stack HCI to an Azure Stack Hub. So I'm going to show you a little bit of architecture of what I'm going to demonstrate because it can get a little bit complicated. But on the left-hand side, you can see we're going to connect several Azure Stack Edges to an Azure Stack Hub. So that is new functionality that we're delivering, is connecting Azure Stack Edge directly to an Azure Stack Hub. You can also connect Azure Stack HCI to, with Arc. You can manage it through the same portal with Azure Stack Hub. Now, those Azure Stack edges, we're going to replicate the storage to a storage account on an Azure Stack Hub. So we can aggregate all of the data from all the different devices and even then connect them to line of business applications. So I'll also deploy Kubernetes cluster to an Azure Stack Hub and then show you how we can map that to line of business applications and have those available. So showing you a complete cloud and edge environment across Azure Stack family. So this plays off of that demonstration that Dean showed as well, from if you look at aggregating data across different Azure Stack Edge devices for medical safety. So with that, I'm going to switch over to my monitor. Did we get there? Great. OK, Bernardo showed you, here is a view from the Azure portal. This is a preview portal of the Edge management. These are our Edge devices. I'm going to first connect an Azure Stack Edge device to Azure Stack Hub, and then show you some of the data transfer. For those of you, OK, that's not good. OK. Sign in failed. That one is, we will show you in a second. Yeah. So let me go through what I'm going to show again. So what I'm going to show is I'm going to show the ability to actually, I'm going to go to an Azure Stack Hub system. It is not here in the room. I can't carry it like this little device. It's actually, we're remoting into the system and connecting to an Azure Stack Hub system in Redmond. And from there, hopefully, I will be able to show you. I will be able to show you then connecting to the Azure Stack Edge devices and deploying the Kubernetes environment. Oh, we're going to have to reconnect. OK. I apologize. This was teed up right before. Are you back in there? Yeah.
Sorry, just credentials.
Credentials, a lot of credentials. Apologies. Live demos, you gotta love them, right? OK, this is how you know it's really happening. So first, this is Azure Stack. So you can see the portal looks like just like you may have used in Azure before. How many of you use Azure Public Cloud? OK, so this portal should look familiar, but you'll notice here on the left-hand side, it does say Microsoft Azure Stack. It's the Azure Stack portal. I'm creating a resource, so if you create a resource, and if you go to data and storage, one of the things we'll be able to easily do is just connect an Azure Stack Edge device directly to the Azure Stack Hub. I'm going to do a little cooking show today and show you what was already created because of time. So here in my resources, I already have several Azure Stack Edges connected to this Azure Stack Hub. If I drill down into this Azure Stack Edge device, and I go to the shares, you'll see that there's a blob. This is where we're replicating data from an Azure Stack Edge device that Dean showed in his demo to this Azure Stack Hub device. This is the list of the files that are available in that blob. And you can notice here, this one, it says Liberia. So you can see these are all the different images and blobs that we had available from, that were being replicated from the Azure Stack Edge device that Dean showed. OK, so now we've connected the Azure Stack Edge devices, so we can aggregate information from multiple different Azure Stack Edge devices to the hub. Next, I want to deploy a Kubernetes cluster. So if any of you have any of you tried to deploy a Kubernetes cluster on an Azure Stack Hub system? OK, a few. Or even just on bare metal. It can be challenging using native Kubernetes tools like kubectl, kubeio, and we have that capability. We've had that capability on Azure Stack Hub. I've had a few customers where it's taken literally a week or weeks to create a Kubernetes cluster on either bare metal or an Azure Stack Hub. In Azure Stack Hub now, we've added the capability to use the Azure Resource Manager to create Kubernetes clusters. So if I create resource, go to compute, you'll see there is an option here to create Kubernetes cluster. Click on Kubernetes cluster, and then all I need to do is create the subscription, add a resource group, and then location. Again, I'll do a little bit of cooking show as well. It takes, though, about 28 minutes. We've timed it on this system, 28 minutes to create a Kubernetes cluster on this system. So if I go back to my resource groups, or actually go to even the dashboard, you can see in this dashboard, here's the Kubernetes cluster that's been created. It includes the master as well as all of the worker nodes. It created the virtual machines that are needed from an IaaS capability. It created the VNets that are needed to create, as well as lay down Kubernetes. If I go to the master, note here, there's this IP address here. Note the IP address is 100.66.36.52. Next, what I'm going to do is show you we've created SQL using the data services, Arc Data Services. We have the same IP range where we've actually laid down SQL onto that Kubernetes cluster. So you see the same range, 166, where we've just easily laid down SQL. So again, quickly deploying Kubernetes cluster onto an Azure Stack Hub, as well as the SQL. Now, if I go back here, the next thing we want to do is show you the application. So again, one of the benefits is aggregating data from multiple sources to an Azure Stack Hub. So in the scenario that Dean talked about, we may have multiple different locations or clinics where people are, healthcare providers are providing data. If we want to have a compliance health check to make sure our healthcare providers are properly, they have the proper equipment on and are safe, we can create a health compliance report across all the different clinics. So we've aggregated the data. Now we've created a compliance application. Because Azure Stack Hub now has GPUs in private preview, we can accelerate some of the GPU processing. And here we've got a report from aggregating from 3 Azure Stack Edges. I can click on one of the pictures, and we can see that this person is in compliance. They have gloves on, they have a mask, and they're in compliance, so they will be safe from a medical perspective. So what I've shown you, again, is the Azure Stack Edges connecting to an Azure Stack Hub. We've got the VM resources, the Kubernetes cluster that I've created, laid down the SQL, and then even connected with IoT Hub in preview. Another benefit is in this is in Azure that we're managing this from, so the portal's different in Azure preview. I can even go down to the Kubernetes cluster, and if I want to go to the Kubernetes cluster, I can click on it and then apply policies to even to the Kubernetes cluster. So this is a end-to-end scenario that you've seen from Edge, connecting Azure Stack Edge devices to an Azure Stack Hub, easily deploying Kubernetes, having data services, and then aggregating information, connecting to a line of business application. All can done quickly, effectively across your Edge devices. So if I go back to the presentation, again, the other benefit that we have here is we are also creating patterns, hybrid patterns and practices. So you can not only have patterns that you can use with Azure Stack Hub, but then also across this entire portfolio, the Azure Stack family. So what's new for Azure Stack Hub? Many of you have been using Azure Stack Hub. We continue to innovate on Azure Stack Hub, and I've got a few things that I'd like to announce for Azure Stack Hub. One is additional hybrid patterns. So we've really been working on creating patterns and practices to help you innovate and modernize when having a cloud on premises, but then also working across the rest of the Edge devices. So we've got ML training, we've got data Elasticsearch that we have available. Then we've got foundational patterns. Many of our customers have been asking for more details on BCDR capabilities, for instance. We have a new ISV and SI program for Hub and Edge, so we're expanding it to Azure Stack Hub and Azure Stack Edge, where we'll have different levels for those programs. From a storage perspective, adding storage with NetApp attachment as well as scalability. In remote areas, we've also seen customers, a customer use case is using HoloLens and HoloLens for remote assist. So another pattern is with Cognitive Spark and HoloLens. Services. We've been really focusing on services that make sense for the edge scenarios and this family. So a lot of services now in preview. You look at cognitive service, the general availability of the Kubernetes on Azure Stack with the AKS engine that we deployed. Event Hubs is in public preview. Windows Virtual Desktop in Azure connected to an Azure Stack Hub. So if you have data sovereignty regulatory requirements, you can keep your client images on Azure Stack Hub and use WVD from Azure. Data services with Azure Arc and then Stream Analytics are all previews as well. From additional features, we're really excited to announce that we'll have both NVIDIA and AMD GPU support in preview. So the AMD is GPU partition preview, and then NVIDIA is a pass-through private preview. To access these GPUs, it also needs the N-Series VM, so we'll have an N-Series VM private preview. Again, a lot of innovation that we've had in the past 6 months on Azure Stack Hub, and we'll continue to innovate across this entire Edge portfolio. So as you've seen in this session, the Azure Stack portfolio has expanded. We've got Azure Stack Edge, HCI, and Azure Stack Hub, really providing you the ability to have Azure services and technologies at the edge wherever you need it in all different form factors, from everything from pre-processing data to doing machine learning to remote branch office, all the way to having that private cloud on premises to connect all of these together. We're really excited about this entire family and what it can do for you. So with that, we have a couple things that we want you to be able to look at. One, check us out. All the hardware is on the show floor in the Intelligent Edge kiosk in the hub. For all of you that are here, we actually have a networking reception tomorrow that we'd like to invite you to. So there's the AKS stack_ignite. Please feel free to RSVP, but we're inviting you to a networking event tomorrow evening. And then finally, just visit us at the expo and check out that link for any needs. So with that, I want to say on behalf of myself, Dean, and Bernardo, thank you for coming. We're very excited about this Intelligent Edge and what Microsoft can do for you. Thank you.